Hi, everybody. Let me check the volume here. Okay. So I normally review in my room, but I was sitting in the basement. My computer's here, so it's kind of easy just to go from there. And it's kind of a cool background, though, the stuff over there on the shelf. Anyway, and I wasn't planning on wearing this Packer hat, but my hair is kind of a mess, so I'm wearing it up here to look a little more presentable. Um, Even though I look more like a lumberjack or some sort of construction worker. Anyhow, uh, so happy day after Valentine's Day, I guess. I meant to do this review yesterday, but because of the fact that I was working last night and I ran out of time, I ended up doing it today. So, uh, this review is probably the last hit film John Travolta did before Pulp Fiction, which is the 1980 classic Urban Cowboy. And I'm doing this review because the movie is 40 years old as of this year during the summer, and it's a love story, so that's it. And the movie Urban Cowboy is actually a real term that was used in the late 70s and early 80s that was aimed at people that had a more modern edge to them, but they would still dress in cowboy attire to look the part for some fantasy. And the movie was actually based off a story in a magazine about two young kids that went to this bar and nightclub Gillies in Pasadena, Texas. They were 18, they married a year later, but then they separated and got divorced around the time this movie came out. And I don't want to give away the ending of this movie, but I will say it does have a happy ending. That's all I'm going to give away. And the story is John Travolta, fresh off of his roles in Saturday Night Fever and Grease, plays Bud Davis, a young cowboy who young redneck who moves from out in the countryside to the Houston area and Pasadena, Texas, to uh, buy some land and get his own. Buy oh, actually, he's going to get a job with his uncle at an oil refinery to get enough money to buy land so he can get his own place. And along the way, he falls in love with a local cutie, Sissy, played by Debra Winger. So the story is they get married, but they end up drifting apart, and the rest of the movie is them sorting through their emotions as they consider leaving each other before ultimately realizing they need one another. And this is one of those movies where it's like, looking back on it now, there are a lot of things in it that would not fly nowadays. But to the movie's credits, some of the stuff, like some of the sexist traditional views of men and female roles, the movie is commenting on it. It's kind of trying to show how stupid these rules or norms are. And they're doing it in a way where you see what they're going for, but you still kind of think that some of the behavior by some of the male characters is kind of stupid. Um, One example is Bud being angry at Sissy for riding this mechanical bull in Gillies, and him getting angry that she can ride it better than him. Which that is probably the most annoyingly arrogant thing I can think of. I mean, I can understand being a little bummed and embarrassed, but yelling at her and telling her never to ride the bull again, and then going so far as to slap her in the face. Um, if you look at my YouTube channel and you go back to when I reviewed Purple Rain, having seen this movie, Prince in Purple Rain had more of a reason for his rude behavior. Bud is just an egotistical douche. But as I said, the movie is trying to paint him in a negative light, even with him going so far as to have sex with another woman to get Sissy jealous, while Sissy is doing the same thing to Bud. And Bud does eventually realize that his pride is ruining his life. And it is kind of a nice character arc, how he matures throughout the movie. And this role, I mean, I know they were considering other actors, but I think John Travolta was, I think young John Travolta was really good at playing characters that were egotistical, kind of the underdogs, but then they eventually learn the error of their ways and try to make amends at the end. So, yeah, and plus, young John Travolta was one hell of a catch back then. you know, even when he had the beard at the beginning of the movie, he was still pretty good. Um, I will say this for a movie, the plot line and the characters, they're simplistic and they're easy to understand. But even though the writing is very basic, the way it's acted, written, and the way it's acted and directed, it gives the script and the writing more of a punch than the words had on paper, which is it is a very impressive feat. And I really like Scott Glenn's character, Wes Hightower, because Scott Glenn, he had the perfect look and the perfect scowl to play this rebellious bad boy. I do think that he did a great job at playing the character convincingly. And what's even more impressive is that all he had to do was have that one look, and you can immediately tell who he was and how charismatic his character was. He didn't need that much dialogue. And then again, characters like that don't require dialogue in order to, to fulfill the role in the movie. And another thing I like about the movie is that it was at Gillies is actually a real location. It was a bar that opened in 1971 and closed in 1989. So this movie came out right around the height of the place's popularity. And my mom, when she graduated from college in 1980, she actually moved down to Texas around the area where that bar was, and she actually visited it a couple times. So the movie, it's not only a nostalgic trip for mom, but it's kind of a nifty time capsule for anyone who grew up in that era. And I really do like how the movie portrays sort of this fun lifestyle. Even though you're struggling day to day to get through your life, it is kind of a fun contrast of how you work all day, go to the bar at night, and have some fun with your friends. It does seem like a very idyllic kind of place to, kind of a nice routine. Um, what I do like about the movie is that even though it's 2 hours long, they did a great job at spreading out the story. Because, I mean, they speed up the whole relationship escalating to a marriage, but then they explore all the problems that Bud and Sissy are having, largely due to the fact that they barely knew each other when they got married. So it's kind of a cautionary tale of don't really rush into things until you're certain for it. But again, like I also said, the pride and arrogance themes and how I can destroy your life is also present in there. It's actually surprisingly emotional because there's one scene where a character dies, and even though the character wasn't in the movie as much, it still kind of hurts you because the few scenes the character was in, it's Bud's uncle. And he was a very likable, loving guy, and he actually gave Bud some life changing advice before he got killed, and it is really heartbreaking. Another thing that I really like about the movie is the soundtrack. I used to listen to country music a lot when I was a kid. I don't really listen to it now, but listening to this album, especially "Looking for Love" by Johnny Lee, it was actually a lot of fun to listen to the music because I'd heard some of these songs before I'd even seen this movie. But again, country music kind of has a nice place in my heart. I mean, it's hard to disown a genre of music that you grew up with for 17 years before you got to be a junior in high school. Anyway, um, there really isn't a lot that there's. I would say this movie is adequate. It's a nice bit of entertainment. It's a good love story. And I don't really think there's much else to say about this, except for the fact that another key thing to mention in the movie is that the country singer Mickey Gilley performs a few songs in the movie, and he was actually the owner and the founder of the bar. So to add more sense of realism to that this place was real. That's really all I have to say. I would think this is a movie that you should watch. If you're a John Travolta fan, how have you not seen this movie? Um, and I would also say that my next review is probably going to be Birds of Prey, and I will see you then. And Monday will be my John Mellencamp cover. See ya. Okay, let me do it again. I did not hit the stop record button right away, so let's try this again. See ya.